On the eve of his 60th birthday, Cassie's father chose to have his last drink. 14 hours later, he collapsed and experienced a lengthy seizure. By the time Cassie got to the hospital, he'd already signed himself out. When she arrived at their house, she assessed her father's physical and mental status, and after explaining how precarious his condition was, she tried to talk him into returning to the hospital. But he was determined to go through his withdrawal at home. Now it's time for Puppets, Pupils, and Producers, a story of mind over matter. After her mother died, Cassie and 2 of her aunts helped with the weddings and scheduled events, and everyone was more than satisfied. Within a couple of weeks, the restaurant was filled to capacity as well. But no matter how good the food or service, it wasn't the same, because the most important ingredient was missing. When her kids came along, Cassie would take them to the restaurant to see her aunts, whom they referred to as Nana and Baba, and she'd check in with her father, which was uncomfortable and fake, because whether intentional or not, she blamed him for her mother's death and couldn't look him in the eye. Although there wasn't much for the kids to do, she preferred taking them to the restaurant because she could control how much of her father's alcoholism they'd see. But she wouldn't point it out because the research and support group said it wasn't his fault. He was a victim of his genes. He had a disease, and nothing would change until he was ready to stop drinking. Alcohol was the problem, sobriety was the solution, and the trick was to survive the wait. Even though she believed the nurture component played a bigger role than nature, she held her tongue and tried to maintain a relationship in the hopes that one day he'd stop drinking, his integrity and empathy would return, and he'd make amends with all the people he'd harmed. However, keeping her opinions to herself did not mean she wasn't going to tell the truth if someone asked her for it. So when she got acquainted with her father's fiancée, who shared that her first 2 husbands were alcoholics who abused her, Cassie told the truth when she asked if her father used to beat her mother. When she asked Cassie why she wouldn't bring her children to their wedding, she also told the truth, to which Marlene responded that she was molested by a family member too, so she understood how she felt, and she'd respect Cassie's decision. Thankfully, she never asked Cassie if her father had a sexual relationship with her brother's 19-year-old ex-girlfriend, because broken-hearted Sherry told Marlene the truth herself. However, she would be lying if she said she always told the truth, because she didn't have the heart to tell her new stepmother that she was absolutely the worst cook ever. Which was also why she didn't believe her Aunt Holly when she said that the same woman was going to take over the restaurant. To Cassie, the idea was as ludicrous as marrying an abusive alcoholic for a 3rd time. But she tried not to judge because she'd made plenty of mistakes herself, and some more than once. And she believed that words hadn't taught her as much as the experiences had. Live and learn was her motto, which was why she gave Marlene the benefit of the doubt. Her Aunt Gloria, aka Nana, died from her first heart attack not long after. Found dead in her bed, she'd gone to her doctor earlier in the week, and he'd told her she needed a vacation. Then her Aunt Holly stopped working at the restaurant, but not because she was right about Marlene convincing her father she was the missing ingredient, but because she'd buried 4 of her 6 siblings, and she decided she wasn't going to kill herself working for a business that was doomed to fail. So she quit, sold her house, and moved closer to Cassie, where she could be a full-time bubba. On the eve of his 60th birthday, Cassie's father chose to have his last drink. 14 hours later, he collapsed and experienced a lengthy seizure. By the time Cassie got to the hospital, he'd already signed himself out. When she arrived at their house, she assessed her father's physical and mental status, and after explaining how precarious his condition was, she tried to talk him into returning to the hospital. But he was determined to go through his withdrawal at home. So Cassie turned to Marlene for support, but once again, she'd been there and done that with her first husband. She'd already filled the prescription for Librium, and she knew to call the ambulance if he had another seizure, or if he became confused, started hallucinating, trembling, or if he developed a fever. Dr. Marlene was on duty, and she had everything under control. On her drive home, Cassie thought about her father's sobriety, and she wondered if it would be enough, and decided that unlike the letters she'd written but never sent before, the time had come for her to speak her truth. She didn't go into all the nasty details, and she didn't ask for an apology. She told him it didn't matter whether he admitted hitting her mother. She had seen it, and she wasn't going to pretend she hadn't. She wanted him to know that his drinking had affected her, and she wasn't going to expose her own children to it. She assumed it arrived in his mailbox, and he'd chosen the option of moving forward and not discussing it further. As usual, Cassie hosted the family's Christmas get-together. Robert and Louis arrived in their latest sports car with their beloved dog. Stan arrived on the bus with his latest girlfriend and her beloved toddler. The only guests who did not arrive were the newlyweds. Cassie called their house, but no one answered. She called several times over the next few hours and left messages on their machine, but they did not respond. She wondered if they'd had car trouble and were stuck somewhere in between, but everyone had been drinking and could not drive. Hours passed without a word from them, so they ate the feast. Then they opened the gifts, and eventually the kids went to bed. Before going to bed herself, Cassie decided to call one last time, and on the third ring, her father picked up. Cassie was shocked and asked if everything was okay. He said they were too tired to attend. She wanted to calmly ask why he hadn't simply called to cancel, or why would he knowingly let everyone worry. But her anger got the best of her, and she blurted out, "What the fuck, Dad?" And he hung up. A year passed, and not one of his children heard from him or Marlene. Everyone assumed he'd started drinking again, but he didn't. Hola, hola, peoples! If you're enjoying my fictional self-healing series, I'd love your feedback. I'd also love it if you'd feed the algorithm by following me and liking the post. And if you're stuck in the mindset and frequency of a puppet, and you'd like an energy session with me, please reach out and we'll make it happen.